Today I'm sharing a super easy sewing project that's perfect for both fall and Christmas decorating. We're turning plain white cotton kitchen towels into these adorable hanging towels. I'll show you step by step how to make these. They're quick and easy and fun to make and make beautiful handmade gifts too. So grab your fabric and let's get started. So the supplies you're going to need to make this project are some kitchen hand towels or bar mop towels. These are from Walmart. They're very inexpensive. I got I think 6 of them in this package for, I want to say it was less than $8. You can also find these on Amazon, and I'll put a link in the description below where you can find them on Amazon. And just to inform you that I am an Amazon affiliate, so anything you buy, I get a small commission. Okay, so you're also going to need some scraps. These are a few of the Christmas scraps that I'm using. And I also have a link for these, this fat quarter bundle. I'll put that in my description below as well. It's really cute fabric. And these fabrics are from Walmart, and it's a fall harvest fat quarter bundle. Those are really good too. And so today I'm going to demonstrate how to make this with the fall fabric. So all you're going to need one of these towels. Put the rest aside. I'm going to cut the fabric that I need for each of these hand towels. Also, I'll have the measurements in the description below so that you can refer back to that. So the first thing we need to do with our hand towels measure 16 by 19 inches. And it's got a nice little, like a terry cloth texture. Now you can use plain if you don't like the terry cloth. You can also use the plain ones. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to fold my towel in half lengthwise, because we're going to cut off the first 5 inches of our towel. And you don't have to do that. If you want it to be really long, you can leave it long. I just prefer it to be a little bit shorter, because the top part is going to be long, and it's going to take up the same, it's going to be about the same length once you put that top section on here. So I like to cut off some of the length. So I'm just going to cut off 5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then I'll save this for another project, because I like to make dishcloths with these. Okay, so now that we have that, it'll measure out. It'll still be like 16 by 14. So I'm going to set this aside for the moment. So for our next piece, this is about 18 inches off of a fat quarter. So what I'm doing here is folded it lengthwise. So I'm going to cut this one at 11 inches in length. Okay, and then I'll open it up. I'm going to measure in the other direction, and you can double it just to save time. In this direction, I'm going to cut it at 10 inches. Okay, so once you do that, you want to open it back up and fold it back lengthwise to the 11-inch. This is going to be our top band of our towel. Okay, so the next section that you need to cut, and I've already cut it out, let's see, is a 2-inch by 17-inch strip of fabric. Now my strip is like 17 and a half. If you're going to cut it on the 18-inch long of a fat quarter, you know, it'll be 18 by 2 inches, which is fine. If there's a couple of, you know, inches longer than what you need, that's fine too. The reason you need 17 inches is because your towel is 16 across, and you want that extra of the other inch in order to fold a hem on the ends. So right at 17 should be just enough to fold it in about a quarter of an inch, or maybe 3/8 of an inch. It'll give you plenty of room to do that. And then you can cut it down, like I said, if you need to. So you'll need that strip, and that's for the lower part of your towel. It's a band that's going to be a decorative band across the bottom. Okay, and so for the next, this is going to go along with your band, is 2 strips of, these are 22s. I cut it across the other section of a fat quarter. But you want 2 bands of 1 1/4 inch to go on either side of this band. So you want to cut those down to 17 as well, like so. So I'm going to cut those down. And then for the top of your band, for the trim here, you'll need another 2 bands like these. Yeah, you're going to cut those at 11 inches as well to go across the bottom of your top band, which will be on your, it'll show on the front of your towel and on the back of your towel. Okay, like I have a piece here. These are thinner. See, these are 1 inch. You're going to want to cut it at 2 inches wide for your top, because you're going to fold those over, and you'll have about a 1 inch exposed, or quarter, 3/4 of an inch exposed. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to sew the bottom band, so we can sew that onto our towel first. So I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to sew these onto the top and the bottom of our band. Okay, so I've ironed my piece for the band on the bottom flat, but now we're going to turn it over and we're going to make a hem. So you just want to fold it up. Now it depends on how wide you want your hem. You can do it wider, you know, fold it under like a quarter of an inch, or you can fold it over 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to fold it up about 3/8 because I want it to go right to where it meets the sewn line where I sewed it before, where we attached the bands. So I'm just going to fold it up as evenly as I can, and then I'm going to iron it down. Okay. And then when you flip it, you can see where it's all nice and hemmed. Okay, and so then I'll do the other side. Just going to finger press it a little bit first so I can make sure that it is even. Check it. Okay, it's good. Okay, and then I'll flip it over and check it out, make sure it's even. If it's not even, you can go back and just kind of open it up a little bit more and then re-iron it. Okay. And so I did the same thing already here at the top where I folded over my hem, and I wanted the top trim to be a little bit wider. So it's about like 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch. And then I'll set that one aside for now. Okay, and so on one end, I'm going to take this, because this I know is longer than my towel. So first I just want to take one end and turn it over about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to iron that down. Okay, flip it, iron it on the other side. Okay, so now I'll grab my towel and I'm going to line it up on the bottom, but we want to do it like 3 inches from the bottom. So to make sure that I have it exactly at 3 inches, I'm going to take my ruler and just measure to make sure. And then you can also take a marking pen, like a water soluble pen, and then I'll just mark right there underneath with it, where it's at 3 inches, just so that I know when I'm placing it on here that I'm lining it up correctly. Take my ruler and make sure I have 3 inches on this side, and then again in the middle. It's about a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to mark this end. And then you can also mark it in the middle. I'm just doing it right under the edge here so that I know that that's my line. And then you can cover it up whenever you put it on here. And then since this is a water soluble marker, it's going to wash out when you wash it. Or you can take a little bit of water and wash that. Okay, so I think I've got it lined up pretty good. I'm going to put a couple of clips in the end. And then that way I can go down here and flip this edge over so that I can hem it, make a hem. Making sure that it's nice and even. And then I'll pull it back and I'm going to iron that down. Okay, so now I can place my clips here on this end. So now all we need to do is sew our top stitching. I'm going to sew a top stitch right here in the ditch between the two different fabrics. And I'm going to do the same on this side. And then I'll go and I'll sew 1/8 of an inch along the edges here on both the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to go right here on the edge and I'm going to sew a top stitch about 1/8 of an inch along this edge on both sides. Okay, so that will attach our band to our towel. So I'm going to do that and then I'll meet you back here so we can start the top. Okay, so I've sewn down the band and I think it came out pretty good. I love this fabric. I hope you can see this really well on camera because in person it is really beautiful fabric. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is work on the top of our towel, and we just need to fold it in half and find that center line. And then I'm going to take a clip and right in here I'm going to stick this clip so that I know right there is where my center is. And then I'll open it up. Okay, so what we want to do now is go from the center here is on the right of my clip. And take that clip back out and then I'm going to fold it over and turn it. I'm going to make a pleat right there in the center. And then I'll put that clip back. Okay, and so from here, we want to start pleating from the outside in, and we're going to reduce the size up at the top to 10 inches by our pleats. So I'm just going to, the way I did it on my other towel that I'll show you in a little bit is I just made like 2 more pleats on each side. And all I'm doing is just turning it in about 3/4 of an inch. And then I clip it. And then I'll do another one here. And clip it again. Okay, and then I'm going to go to the other side. And I'm going to make another one. And then make my last one. And then clip that. Okay, so now I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure and make sure, see how long it is. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to because it's going to naturally kind of point up like this, but you want it to come out as straight as you can so that you can measure and make sure that you have 10 inches. Well, I've got 9 inches, so I'll need to let out some of my pleats a little bit, just a little too large. I think this was a little bit large. Okay. And I'll measure it again. And that's right at 10. Okay. So that's what you want to do. You might want to make sure that it's 10 inches across here. And then I'll set that aside. And I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to sew across each of these pleats so that they stay together before I put the top on. Okay, so I'm sewing across each of the pleats, and I just went down about 1/4 of an inch or maybe a little more than 1/4 of an inch over each pleat. And I also, when I went over them, I went backwards over them as well, just to secure it. Okay, and so now our top, what we're going to do is we're going to lay this right in here between the folds of the top of our, the top band of our towel. Just like this. So you'll want to, let's see. Well, before we do that, we need to hem the sides. So we'll need to turn the sides in, and I'm going to iron them. It makes them stay a little bit better. So I'm just going to turn it in about 1/4 of an inch. And then I'll iron these down. And I also wanted to show you, whenever you're folding your hems over like this, you might get a little bit of extra where it would show on the edge here. And I just take my little scissors and I'll cut that corner so that when you fold it over, that corner's not sticking out. Just cut a little bit like that, just a little tad, you know, little snip. And then whenever you're turning it over, it's not going to stick out. And I'll do the same on this side. So you can see where it would kind of stick out. It's a little tiny snip. Okay, so I've got that one. And then I'm going to fold it over. So I want to do one side at a time when I'm hemming, because I want to make sure that when you put your top section on over, you want to line this up with the edge here of your towel, like this. And then you can place a clip. And also, if it's helpful for you, you can take some glue, just a school glue stick, and I'll just dab a little bit here, and that way it'll hold down this hem in place over the towel. And again, this is washable, so it'll wash out when you wash your towel. And it'll hold it down really well, so when you go to your machine and hem it up, it's going to stay in place and you don't have to worry about it shifting on you. Okay, so for this side, I'm marking where I need to turn my hem over so that it will match with this side of the seam. And I'm going to put a clip right there so I'll know exactly the amount that I need to fold it under. And we do the same thing right here. Okay, so now I can move this out of the way, and then I'm going to iron this hem over. Okay, and then I will come and cut off this little edge here. Okay, so now we have that one ironed. Now we can lay out our top. So I'm just going to come in and put it right where the band will go over where I sewed over those pleats, because you don't want that to show. Make sure these line up. You may have to, adjust it a few times just to make sure that it's all nice and even. And then you can go in and put some straight pins to hold it. Or like I say, you can put some glue. I'm going to just put glue. Okay. And then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the same thing on the back to make sure that it's even with the front. Now I'm going to take it to my machine and I'm going to sew again right here in the ditch between the two fabrics, and then again on the edge I'll sew it about 1/8 of an inch or a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch on the edge. And then we're going to take it and sew it from the ends here all the way to the top. So we're going to top stitch this. And then when I'm done, I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so I've finished putting the band on the top, and I put 2 lines down here of top stitching. I just like the look of it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to sew up about 1/2 inch from this fabric, and we're going to sew 4 lines about 1/4 inch apart all across here. And you want to use your long stitching like a 5.0 or 6.0, so that we're going to pull these threads and we're going to pleat the top. So you're going to want to make sure that your threads are long. You're going to want to pull up your thread from the bottom when you start, and make sure those two threads are pretty long so you can pull on them on both sides when you finish and when you start on each of those lines. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my bottom thread by just holding on to my top thread and turning your wheel of your sewing machine till you can grab that bottom thread. And sometimes I have to take off my foot so I can see that thread, but there we go. And I'm pulling it up. Okay, so I've got it probably about 10 inches long, and I'm going to swing that over to the back, and then I will start to sew my lines. So I'm going to go about a 1/2 inch from the bottom, and then I will start to sew. Okay, so when I get to the end, instead of hitting my cutting button, which I'm very used to doing, I'm just going to pull this and pull it out until I get about another 10 inches, and I'm going to cut it. Pull those to the back, and then I'll start my next line. And I'm doing these about 1/4 inch away from each other. Okay, and then I'll sew these next 2 lines, and then I'll show you what to do next. So I've sewn each of my 4 lines, and I've separated the top threads with the bottom threads, because we're going to pull all the bottom threads to make our ruffle. So I'm just going to start by doing that. I've got all of them at one time, at the same time, and we're going to pull it. I'm just going to keep pulling. You see it starting to ravel, to gather, I mean. Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to pull some of it towards the middle, and I'll pull on the back threads again, and you're just going to keep going until you gather at least halfway from this side, and then you'll go to the other side, and you'll do the same thing. You'll separate the bottom threads from the top. Sometimes it's kind of hard to do that. Okay. And you're going to go and separate each one of these threads, and then you'll pull and gather towards the center. Okay, so you'll just gather it until you're happy with what, the width of it and how it looks. If you want it to be a little bit more, closer together, you can do that. I'm just trying to make them like all even. Okay. So once you have that all gathered in, then you'll take each of your ties on the edges, and then from each of the 4 rows, you're going to take the top and the bottom and Make sure they're separate. And then I'll just go in there and I'll tie them. And I'll go through the string like 2 or 3 times and tie it in a knot. Okay, and then you take your scissors and cut that one off. And you'll do that to each of your rows on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to finish this up and then I will show you what the final step is. Okay, so I've tied off all of our strings, and now our ruffled top is all done. So now all we have to do is to make our tab for the back. And with this, I'm just going to use this dark green fabric, and you can use any kind of matching fabric to your top because it's not going to really show because it'll be on the back. And what I've done is cut a 2-inch by 8-inch piece of fabric, and I'm going to fold it right sides together, and then I'm going to flip up the 2 ends. You want your tab to, once it's all sewn and flipped out, it should be about 3.5 inches long. And I find that that's just, right about the right size, the right length, depending on how thick of a bar you're going to hang your towel on. Okay, so I'm just going to flip these back like this because I want to make sure there's a hem at the end. And I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch on each side. And then I'm going to flip it out. Okay, and then once I flip it around, then I'm going to top stitch it all the way around. And that'll close this end as well. Okay. Okay, I've sewed my tab, and all I have to do is turn this around. And then I'm going to sew it to the top of this, around this top line. So you want to go right about 1/8 of an inch, and then so that it lines up with that top line on the back. And then we'll come back and we'll put in our Velcro. Okay, so I've sewn the flap to the back in the center, and now all I need to do is place my Velcro. And what I'm using is this Velcro for fabrics. It'll stick on and be permanent, and so you can still wash this once you, however many times you need to wash it, and it'll still stay sticky. Okay, and so I'm just going to cut a piece that is, let's see, about 1 inch. Okay, and so all you got to do is peel it. I want to put the more rougher side down on here. So I'm going to peel the top side and stick it to the bottom of the flap. And just press it really hard for a minute. It sticks really well. And the instructions say to wait about 24 hours before you hang it to make sure that the glue sticks really well to your fabric. So I'm going to put it to where it's even on this orange flap. And just press it down. See, and this will give you plenty of room here to hang on an oven or like a dishwasher door handle or even a cabinet handle that is horizontal. But if you want to hang this on a cabinet or bar that is vertical, all you have to do is just take your tab and sew it across here so that it's to the side rather than up and down. So you can do this either way. Okay, so here is the fall version, and Here is my Christmas version. Now I'm going to hang these up so that you can see them. So you have the tab on the back of the Christmas version as well. So now your kitchen is ready for the season. You've got 2 adorable hanging kitchen towels ready for Christmas and for fall, or it'll make a perfect gift for any of your friends or family. Drop me a note in the comments below and let me know which one of these you like best. Don't forget to like and share and subscribe to my channel for more creative sewing ideas coming soon. I've got lots coming up for the holiday season, so you won't want to miss that. Thanks for watching. Happy sewing.